So another week comes and it goes, and we've got lots to get through. Cups galore, more Championship rugby on the horizon. It's a busy old one, this one. And of course, with me to talk through it all is my friend, Mr. Craig Lingard. How you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Come on, let's bask in the glory of a great rugby league moment. Alex Johnson, 213 tries over there in the NRL. The scenes, Craig. Incredible moment for rugby league in general. That.
Yeah, I think that the try scoring moment as well. I think there's been a little bit of build up during the week, haven't they, about whether if you're going to score the try, were fans going to come on the pitch? Well, they're not, and I think they put a warning out there saying that any fan were going to get banned and fined. I think like that as soon as it happened, you knew it were going to come, didn't you? And I think the thing that made me chuckle the most was the first fan that went onto the pitch got dragged away by the security guard. He turned around and saw hundreds of other people running on the field and thought, oh, well, I might as well just let you go then and just let him go and cracked on with it. So, but I think it's great, something like that. I know it's maybe not ideal. The game has to be postponed for a little bit, doesn't it, and put back to allow the people to get off the field. So it's not ideal that we've got people encroaching on the playing surface. But I think with something like that, you can understand it, guys. It's potentially a once in a lifetime event. Is that people are seeing and people wanting to enjoy as well. So hopefully it's gone down very, very positively across the world of rugby league.
Do you know what? I just thought it was a moment, and we're going to be. It's to see Roosters and Rabbitohs fans in unison. I mean, those two don't like each other. All of them rushing on in unison as rugby league supporters. It was like Rocky IV when he went on the shoulders and all that. I mean, as a spectacle for rugby league in terms of hits on social media and all the rest of it, that was a moment, and also said a lot about our game, not only in the way in which it happened in terms of fans running onto the field, but how quickly actually once Johnston left the field, they just all went back to the seats and they cracked on. Yeah,
definitely. Like I say, I think it's one of them once in a lifetime moments for a lot of people, and it's not going to be beaten for a long time. I know we always say that records are there to be broken, but it's something that's going to take a phenomenal achievement to break. And let's not forget, he's got a few more years left in him yet to add to that total, haven't you? And as you said, I think it was done as sensibly as possible. People went on the field, and as soon as the moment were over, they got back off and allowed the game to re-continue rather than staying on the field and dragging it out longer than it needed to be. So I think it's one of them moments that you can enjoy, can't you, and look back on and say, well, it was probably done in the most respectful way possible.
Absolutely. As a Bunnies fan over there in the NRL, he's given me many a happy moment as Mr. Johnson. Delighted for him. Last week, we talk about Cumbrian Rugby League quite a bit this year on Championship Rugby yourself. And Workington, I don't know if you saw this, but Workington have unveiled plans for a new 3,700 stadium alongside the football club, hoping to get spades in the ground this year. This can only be a positive for Cumbrian Rugby League.
Yeah, definitely. And I think tying it in with the football club as well certainly helps. I think there's I think that's the way forward now. If you can pull your resources and get a community stadium, I guess, where you can make a hub of a sporting locality, whether it's football, rugby union, whatever it might be, cricket, even. We're going back to the old days out with the rugby, football, and cricket and bowls on the same ground, and potentially that's a decent model to go back to in this day and age with financial costs and everything that's spiraling out of control. So I think if local teams can pull the resources and put everything together and make a community hub that the local people can try and get behind as well. And I think with the 3,700 capacity, I think that's a real sensible thing to do rather than making a massive stadium and making it feel empty. If it generally now with these new stadiums that they build in such a way that as and when you need to add capacity onto it, you can do, and you can build around it rather than having to move to a separate ground if you get a little bit bigger. So I think it's very, very positive, not only for rugby league but sport in Cumbria as a whole.
Well, speaking of Workington, 28 points to 12 defeat at the hands of Newcastle in the 1895 Cup. As always, the pitch came in for some criticism up there in Cumbria. But to be fair, a spirited second half performance from Workington. They went 10-0 down at half time.
Yeah, I think this was one of the games last week that I certainly couldn't call based on the results that had been going previously. And obviously, Workington got that very good victory against Salford the previous week, and you never know what sort of team Newcastle are going to get. We commented that we didn't know whether Newcastle would be impacted on the people they could select based on what team Mark Applegarth selected at York, and it was one of them games that could have gone either way. And Newcastle managed to get the victory, and as you said, Workington in that second half showed a lot of fight and a lot of resilience to try and get back into the game.
Absolutely. And yourselves, of course, you went off to the Swinton Lions, a 50-0 win for your Sheffield Eagles. I read your post-match comments. You felt that, again, you left a few scores out there. But I have to say, you changed your tactics in this one, I believe. Talk us through it in terms of, the conversations you're having on the bench when you saw how the game was unfolding.
Just about we tried to concentrate on ourselves this week and get into a process about how we're going to play. We've talked about it a lot and we've not quite managed it as yet. And we talk about we've got this thing we call a kill streak, where you get a point for each thing that you do well, and it's the basis behind it is that the higher the kill streak, the more possession that you've got, the more field position that you've got, the more territory that you've got, so the more likely you are to score points. And generally, the higher the kill streak, the higher the point scoring that you've got. And we maybe switched off from that a little bit recently. So we just wanted to go a bit direct, generate some ruck tempo, just concentrate on ending our sets in the corner and defending up and making the opposition kick out of their 40-metre area, so we would win that territory battle and just try and concentrate on that process rather than think about scoring points, because the points will come on the back of that. And we didn't necessarily start the game too well. I think we completed 3 sets out of our first 6 and pretty much defended the first 15 minutes in our own 20-metre area. So Swinton did exactly to us what we were planning on doing to them in that first sort of 15 minutes. But the conditions were really, really difficult. The game nearly got cancelled with standing water on the pitch with that much rain there. We got delayed going through to Swinton on the motorway, and the players were getting strapped on the bus. And then we got some duff information that the game was going to get delayed by 30 minutes. So I told the players that they got until 3:30, and then the referee said that's not the case. So it was a little bit of a rush to get the players out and ready for warm up in the end up. But just a real, I thought we were real professional in the second half, and we just broke it right back to basics and just decided to go direct through the middle, just try and generate some ruck tempo and just try and roll Swinton.
Yeah, obviously, second half performance was very, very strong indeed. Good to see Mr. Griffin getting a brace. He can't have had many braces in his career, George.
He had a few. I asked him at half time because he scored the first 2 tries. I said, "Have you ever scored a hat trick?" And he said, "No." And I don't think even in junior or sort of rep games growing up, coming through the systems, I don't think he'd ever scored 3 tries, and he's still not scored 3 tries. So he got 2 and out. So bit like a batter retiring when you get to 25 or 30, you just walk off. He's done them.
But no, great for George. That outstanding. He must have been overjoyed with getting those 2. And then we said about Barrow going down to London. Of course, they raised funds for it. The club's come out and thanked everybody for the donations to make that one a little bit easier on the pocket for Barrow. And we said, it was going to be interesting. Could Barrow go down and make a fist of it? 36-10. That'll surprise a few in terms of, because the way London have been playing and some of the scores that they've been putting on this year, it's fair to say Barrow went down there and gave him a game. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I've not seen the game. I've seen Paul Carey's interview afterwards, and I think he was quite pleased with the effort that they put in. I think they conceded a try very early on. I think did Barrow maybe the first set or the first couple of sets of the game just to put them on the back foot a little bit. Which in a game like that, where you wanted to go and try and put the opposition under pressure and try and take them a little bit longer into a game, when you concede so early on, it derails the plan that you've got. And I think if that was the case when they conceded so early on, and they've managed to hold London and even push London to probably one of the closest games that they've had this year, apart from I think the first game against Oldham with that 25-8 or something like that. I think it's probably the closest that London have been pushed this year. And I think Barrow brought a few of their squad players in, the younger players as well. So Barrow weren't at full strength. So. And I know that London aren't as well, with the number of injuries that they've got currently. So I think it's a very, very respectable performance from Barrow going down there.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Right, let's get into this, because, of course, the draw has been made for the 1895 round 1 fixtures. Difficult to get a read on some of these because, they haven't played each other yet. Of course, Doncaster have played Salford in round 5. It was a 78-8 win for Donny. So, you would suggest, based on scores this season, a good draw for Doncaster, that one, based on current form.
Yeah, definitely. Again, we spoke about Salford, haven't we, and where they are and what's realistic for them to achieve this season. And I think going away to Doncaster, having previously been beat by the margin that you suggested there, it's going to be a tough task and maybe an uphill struggle for them. But I think the task for Doncaster in that respect is to be professional and not take it for granted, because we keep saying in this league that surprises can always happen, and if you're not on your game, you're not switched on, and you do take things for granted, a little bit loose in your preparation, then you can get found out.
Absolutely. Of course, yourselves, you've been drawn up against Rochdale. Of course, you played them a couple of weeks back now, a 20 points to 44 win for your Sheffield in that game. Of course, you'll take nothing for granted, but could have been worse draws for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, there could have been. Yeah, so we've got that victory over Rochdale previously, but they'll be. I would imagine they'll be encouraged by the second half performance that they showed as well. So we'll hold no fears for them based on their resilience. Now they dug in that second half and put a couple of scores on us as well. So similar to Doncaster, our message to our players is to again concentrate on us getting that process and make sure that we turn up and we're ruthless and resilient in everything that we do, because that's the thing that we need to do now. Is we've won a couple of games where we've had to graft and we've had to grind. We've won a couple of games where we've maybe got a few points on the board, and we just need to start developing that ruthless streak now. And if we are a score in front or a couple of scores in front, how ruthless can we be to make sure that we can take the game away from the opposition rather than giving them little bits of breadcrumbs just to keep in the fight.
Yeah, of course, I think many would say the toughest draw is London away, and that's what Keighley have got. They'd have probably winced a little bit when that one came out.
Yeah, you'd have thought so, wouldn't you? It's if you've got to play London, you prefer to play them at home, wouldn't you? So you've not got the travel and everything else to go on the back of that. It's going to be a difficult task as it is playing London, but doubly difficult going all the way down to London and playing them on their own patch. So yeah, you would suggest that quite rightly London are going to be big favourites and heavy favourites for that game.
Yeah, and then the Dewsbury one, that's an interesting game. Dewsbury against Widnes. Dewsbury, of course, got off to a flying start, 3 from 3 in the Championship. They've cooled a little bit since then, as opposed to Widnes, who had a slow start and then have really kicked into gear. So that could be a really good game.
Yeah, it could, and similar to the game last week with Dewsbury against Barrow, that you've got to account for the pitch at Dewsbury. It's a lot smaller than what other teams are used to playing on. The dimensions, everything, they are a little bit different. So you've got to get your head around that. You might have to change your mindset a little bit and change your game plan and potentially be a little bit more direct rather than playing the shapes that you normally would play. And obviously, Widnes playing on the 4G pitch, it's an official full size rugby field, isn't so they're going to have to accommodate that one as well. But that's a really interesting game, is that one for me?
Yeah, I agree. I think that could be a really good game. Then Goole home tie against Whitehaven. Goole will be pleased with that, I would have thought. Home tie against Whitehaven.
Yeah, again, you don't want to be travelling up to Cumbria, do you? If you can help it, and certainly playing at home. Whitehaven hit a little bit of form. They've won a game and drew a game last couple of games for them. So that little bit of I guess they're smiling a little bit more than they were previously, having them 3 points out of 4. Goole, tough game at the weekend, but I would imagine they'll have taken a lot out of that experience as well, with some of their younger players or more inexperienced players playing against a Super League side as well. So yeah, another one that can go either way. And I'd probably just say on basis of Goole being at home, I'd maybe just tip them slightly.
Yeah, Oldham taking on Unslet. I mean, like I say, just a little bit of a narrative. Both have played Widnes this year. And both have had a tight game. 6 points between them in those games. So a bit of a measurer, maybe potentially a bit of a measurer in terms of that. Could be a close one. Yeah,
I think it will be, and I think especially if Unslet are getting several players from Leeds as well, like they did in that Widnes game. I think certainly with them, if they can get the 2 or 3 additional players from Leeds, based on how Leeds are travelling at that moment in time, injury-wise and whatnot, if they can strengthen and get several players in from external, it'll certainly help them and mean that the game's going to be a real close one. And Unslet I think they're a very good team, underrated team at Town and Hunslet, and we played against them several weeks back now and probably just scraped to victory. And they've got some quality players. Lee Gaskell's still doing what Lee Gaskell does and dictates the game, and he's very, 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 very smart. And we know how good Oldham are, the squad that they've got on paper as well. That they've maybe not started the season as they would have liked, but they've had some tough games, and I would imagine that they'll now be looking at trying to get into a bit of form and some consistency.
100%, 100%. Newcastle Batley. Again, this is an interesting. When you look at who both of these two teams have played early doors this season, they've both gone up against North Wales. Batley getting a good win away, 30 points to 16 in round 6, as opposed to Newcastle, who of course surprisingly lost to North Wales, 30 points to 20. That surprised us at the time. I remember us talking about that really caught us all off guard. And of course, both have had good wins against Swinton. So again, on paper, I mean, again, we know that Newcastle can pull on the reserves of York, but just based on who they've played thus far this season, again, this has got the makings of a really interesting cup tie.
Yeah, I think it has, and I think we're in the period at the minute. Batley didn't have a game last week; they weren't drawing the preliminary round. It's their weekend off this week as well, so they're going a couple of weeks without a game. I think that's speaking to people within Batley. I think they're quite pleased with that, because I think they've had a few battered and bruised bodies as well, so it gives them a little bit of time to recover. But when you go in 2 weekends without a game, it means that you're effectively playing. It's 3 weeks until your next game. So is that something to take into account? Newcastle obviously being drawn in the preliminary round, and they will have another league game as well. It means that they're playing consistently week in, week out. But I know we're very, very early on in the season, but when you're playing week in, week out, and you've maybe got a few battered bodies, and you've not got the players to choose from as you ideally would like to, that might have an impact as well. But certainly with the results as they've gone so far, it's got the makings again to be a tight contest.
Absolutely. And then Midland going up against North Wales, away at North Wales. So that helps North Wales a little bit, I would say. But based on form, Midland at the moment just look a better outfit.
Yeah, I think so, on form. As you said, they're travelling their way out, they're going to North Wales. North Wales will be more happy playing on their own patch as well. So that might mean the game's a little bit closer than had it been at Midlands. Again, yeah, I think you'd probably tip slightly towards Midlands on that one, but I wouldn't, being a betting man, I wouldn't be chucking all my chips in the middle and putting them on Midlands.
Fair play. Let's get into this weekend. Of course, we're back to the Championship. I tell you what, it's mad. It seems to be going at a fair old pace at the moment. I can't believe we're already at officially round 7, early doors. And of course, you're kicking off the round. Home tie against Oldham, a 3 o'clock kickoff this weekend in Sheffield. And of course, Oldham are coming off the back of a good win away at Midland, 40 points to 20 in obviously they had a bye round, I think, didn't they? They have a bye round last time round?
No, last week they played at Catalans in the cup, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So they played Catalan. My apologies. But yeah, 40 points to 20 against Midland, wasn't it? Last time they were out in the Championship. That'll have settled them down a little bit. Of course, you're at home. Got a great record, mate. Where do you think the game could be won and lost this weekend between you and Oldham?
Yeah, I think it's tight margins. I think the team that are prepared to I guess grind the game out. I think both teams have got the players and the potential to score points. I think the attitude to prevent the opposition from scoring points is probably going to be key in this one, because we know the quality of players that Oldham have got, and they've got dangers across the park, big middles, smart half-backs, and strike on the edges as well. So we know that defensively we're going to have to be very, very good, and we've shown that this year in the majority of games. Just the Rochdale game where we think we let ourselves down a little bit. Coming on the back of the weekend, we just had against Swinton where we didn't concede a point. Again, I thought we defended really, really well in that game. So I think if we can take the attitude to defence into that game against Oldham, knowing full well the dangers that they've got, then it certainly puts us in a decent position to be in a position to win the game. So I think the team that's prepared to do the hard graft and grind and be gritty, and it's a muck and nettles game for me. It's not going to be a pretty game where you're going to be. It's not going to be a 44-34 game. I don't think. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that.
Yeah, no, I think it could be a real good one. Of course, you're in great form, 4 from 4. Another win for you. It's be very, very nice indeed. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the week you went top 4 if you can make that happen. But yeah, very, very interesting game. Great way to kick off round 7. We then go to the Sunday fixtures, all 3 o'clock. Where's out 3 o'clock kickoffs? Doncaster taking on Widnes. Now, again, we're trying to. I know that you said you're about 4 rounds and you get a feel. I'm trying to gauge. I'm still, because of the way the results have been going in the Championship this year. It's like you never know what's going to happen from one week to the next. Interestingly, though, in rounds 5 and round 6, both of these two sides played Goole, and both played Goole at home. Donny got a 32-16 win, a 54-24 win for Widnes. If we're trying to gauge, does that give the advantage to Widnes, or do you think the fact that Doncaster at home makes it even tighter again?
Yeah, I think the home advantage certainly counts in these games. It's very, very difficult. I think you look at previous results, and you say that's a bit of an indicator. But everything's completely different. You've got different weather conditions. You've got potentially different 17 that are playing. There's different everything that might happen. So you can't just say that because one team won by more points than the other team, it's good. That's going to be an indicator of who's going to win the game. I think it's a strange one, is this, because Doncaster have won some games really convincingly. I think Widnes have won some games where they've had to scrap and they've had to fight for games, and like the Ulster game the other week where they had to come through the other side and go the distance, So it's one of them. Do you think our Widnes maybe a little bit more battle-hardened because they've been in a closer game, and if it's closer, then you're slightly more favouring towards Widnes? But if Doncaster set off and get a couple of early scores, they're really comfortable being in front, and they've got the quality of players to make sure that they can, they can stamp on the throat of the opposition and take the game away from them. They've got that quality. So I think the start of the game is really important in a game like this. That certainly for Widnes, I think they'll be looking at trying to keep it as tight as possible. And I think Doncaster will be looking at trying to get on that front foot and get maybe get a couple of scores on the board, and then with the quality of players that they've got, try and pull away and make it an easy day for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Widnes have played, a game more than Donny, haven't they? But in terms of conceding, that's got to be the concern if you're a Widnes fan. 130 conceded thus far this season. Donny's 74, which even on a pro rata basis would put them sub 100. So that again does fare well for Donny at the moment. Their defence seems a bit stronger.
Yeah, I would say so. And points scored wise, and Doncaster scoring a lot more points as well at times. So points per game better. Points conceded per game is better as well. You might tip towards Doncaster on that one, and certainly with the home advantage, you maybe more. I guess again, if you're a betting man, more likely to tip Doncaster on that one. But you never write Widnes off with the resilience that they've got, and if it's a close game, then they've been there before, haven't they, and come through the other side.
Absolutely. Halifax Panthers, of course, back playing. They had London to look forward to. God bless them. We said that last week, of course, lost 42 points to 4. But Kyle Eastman has come out and said he's expecting a much better showing against North Wales this week. Of course, again, it's at Halifax. Would you expect Halifax to get back on the horse on this one, or would you expect North Wales to go and keep the foot on the throat?
It's a difficult one. I think I would expect a better showing from Halifax because they've had more time together. They'll have trained 3 or 4 more times together since last time as well. Potentially a little bit more with the week off that they had. So you would think they're a bit more. They'll be a bit more consistent, and they'll be a bit more together in the performance this week. It depends on squad as well. I've not seen that Halifax have brought any more players in. I think they had a squad of 17 in the last game that they played against London. So that's going to have an impact on them if they've not brought anybody else in. They've got some people that carry a little bit of niggles and knocks or whatnot. I would imagine the week off will have come at a real good time for them just to get a few more training sessions in together as a group and rest a few bodies who might have been a little bit battered having not played for 3 or 4 weeks. That's the other thing to contend with as well, that they missed several weeks of playing, did the players. So when you come back in, it's almost like starting the first game of the season again and getting your body up to the speed of the games and used to the contact and the physicality of the game. So I would expect a better performance from Halifax. And the 17 that put out against London were a very, very good 17, and on any other week, you'd expect that 17 to be winning games. But coming in after the turmoil that the club had, and 48 hours or whatever it was preparation for the game, then it was always going to be very, very difficult. But I would imagine a closer game this week.
Yeah, no, it'll be an interesting game to watch. Hunslet going up against Barrow again. Two sides this year. Hunslet probably disappointed to be one from five. Barrow, of course, in much better form, sitting third in the table. Again, would you expect a Barrow win here, or are we going to get one of those shocks?
I'm not sure. I think this is going to be a close game. I really do think it's going to be a close game. And Hunslet at home, they're always difficult to beat. And I know Barrow have played well this year away from home, and as you said, they're sat high in the table. But they had the trip down to the capital this week, didn't they? And they'll be on the back of that. It does take a little bit out of you, but they'll be used to travelling week in, week out. About every other week they're playing away from home, so it's something that they'll put into their prep, and their players will be used to. But yeah, it's a difficult game for me to call this one. I think it's going to be a very, very close game.
Probably not as hard to call. You wouldn't expect Salford to go down to London and win, would you?
No.
Yeah, we just wish Salford well there. Hopefully that they can just put up a good showing on that one. Newcastle taking on Keighley. Again, Keighley been a bit up and down this season. A couple of wins, a couple of losses, a draw. Going. I think it's at Newcastle. This one, isn't it? Yeah. It's a tough. I think it's a tough game. It looks a tough game on paper when you go to Newcastle this year. But again, even Newcastle, we've given them so many superlatives this year, but the form hasn't been great, has it? So again, on that basis, this is not easy to call it.
No, it's not. There's them inconsistencies in performances and results, and I've said all along while we've been doing this, if you can show a little bit of form and you can win 5-6 games on the bounce, it gives you that little bit of a cushion and a buffer for when you have maybe a couple of weeks where you're not quite firing on all cylinders. You might lose a couple of games, so. That's why it's really important for teams like us at the minute, where we've won 4 on the bounce. The longer that we can keep that going, the higher up the table we're obviously going to be, but the safer we're going to be for when that inconsistency comes. And these two teams at the minute, they're having that little bit of inconsistency, which will be disappointing for them, because they might be winning a game, losing a game, winning a game, or winning a couple of games and losing a couple of games. I think both teams will be looking at trying to develop a little bit of consistency just to propel them further up the table and try and get in towards the playoff positions. And this is going to be a massively important game, I would imagine, for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's the confidence piece as well, isn't it? Winning breeds confidence as well. And like you say, that if the consistency is not there, it's difficult, isn't it? In any team sport to really go into any game with that 100% confidence that you're going to put on a good showing. There's always that little bit of fragility in the mind, isn't there? If you're stuttering.
Yeah, definitely, and it brings up then, like I said, it can bring that fragility into the mind that we were here last week and we're in this situation and we lost. Is it going to happen again? And you try and make sure that your players are, the mental framework's positive and they're looking at what they need to do to make sure they get through to the other side. But it's human nature, isn't it, that when you put in a situation that if you're in a situation where you're winning close games, it's always been here before. We've done it. We know how to do it, and then you're more likely to win them close games. If you're in close games and you're losing consistently, then it's here we go again. We're in another game where it's going to be close, and what happens now if we lose again? So it's the more used to you get winning these close games or getting through games when you're not particularly playing too well, the more confidence it gives you as a group that you've got that resilience, you've got that know-how, you've got that desire to make sure that you can win them close games. So it's certainly a good habit to get into.
Absolutely. A game now that you'll have an eye on in preparation for that 1895 Cup game is Rochdale against Midlands this week. You'll probably have one eye on that in terms of how Rochdale go. Again, Midland have had I think Midland have had a really strong start to the season. I think they've been very, very good this year. They'll be full of confidence, I would have thought, going into this game. As for Rochdale, who again bitty at times, but like I say, I'm almost surprised at how well Midlands. I don't want to be disparaging, but I wasn't expecting what we've seen thus far from Midlands this year.
I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I think they've recruited very well. They've recruited some experienced players to potentially win some of these games and get them through the other side in some of these games. And they've picked up a few injuries at times. And Danny Craven's a big loss for them. I think he's done for the season. Is Danny Craven with his ACL injury, so that's a big loss for them. But I'm sure he's still in and around the place and giving his knowledge and his experience around to the players that are in there. So I'm not necessarily surprised that Midlands are doing as they are. I think they've been building slowly and steadily for 2 or 3 seasons now, and I think this year they've had maybe a little bit of an influx in a little bit more money, and they've brought some more senior players in there, players with Super League experience, Championship experience as well, and I think they're as strong as I thought they were going to be, and I think it's going to be a difficult task for Rochdale this week. But as I said, their last game that they played against us, they'll be trying to use that as a positive, that the second half performance, it'll give them a little bit of a lift to show that they can score points, and being at home as well, they'll be wanting to put a performance on for their fans.
And of course, it's good. What is good about seeing Midlands doing well is where they're situated in the country. And we talk about expanding and the rest of it. It's good that they are doing so well. Let's hope that we can get more and more interest in that part of the country. And then, of course, Workington will bring the round to a close when they go up against the Dewsbury Rams. Again, yeah, I mean, it's one of those, whenever we talk of the Cumbrian teams, they are doing it tough. The pitches don't help. It is at Workington. And maybe that's a leveller, maybe, in this one.
Yeah, again, I think it's a tough one. You've got we mentioned it going up to Cumbria, you've got the travel and the journey and the long day to contend with when you're going up there from Yorkshire, and it's something that you don't do every week. So it is different for the teams that go up to Cumbria or travel down to London. When you're based in Cumbria or you're based in London, then you do that every other week. So it just becomes part and parcel of your normal away day routine. So you get used to what you eat and when you eat it and how you eat it and when you take your fluids on board. You're used to being sat on a bus for a long time and occupying yourself as well. When you're doing it the other way around, you only go up to Cumbria once or twice a season normally. It's very difficult to get yourself into that routine of this is when I eat, this is what I drink, this is how I do it, and you sat on the bus sometimes and you're not getting up and moving about as much as you needed to because you're not used to doing that. So it will take the toll out of some of the Dewsbury players, I would imagine, going up there if they're not prepped that in the right way. So it could have an impact on them. So again, it's one of them games for me where it's going to be very, very close, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in those type of games as well, how important will Jacob Hookham be in terms of his goal kicking? Of course, he's up there in the goal kicking charts this year. He's doing well in that department. In those type of games, scoreboard pressure, taking it over can be critical, can't it?
Oh, it's massive. I think people underestimate how important a good goal kicker is. Turning them fours into sixes. It don't seem a lot, but it's massive. If you score 3 or 4 tries and you're not converting the tries, as a coach, you're thinking, we could be another 8 points in front here, but we're not. And the opposition are still close. To coin an old John Keir phrase, a conversion's half a try. You know what I mean? So it's very, very important. I think it's underestimated how much a good goal kicker can help you win games. And you only notice when you've not got a good goal kicker. You only notice when you're missing goals out how important it is to have somebody who's consistently doing that. And obviously, if you are a good goal kicker, you're a good kicker out of hand as well. And certainly up at Cumbria with the generally a very, very strong wind that's blowing from right to left as you come out onto the field at Workington as well. So kicking out of hand is going to be important in that game as well.
In most tight games, isn't it? It's not necessarily the differences in tries; it's the difference in conversion percentage a lot of the time that differentiates the two sides, which is exactly why you're saying goal kicking might be underestimated, but it's most often than not, it's what wins you the games.
I think so, yeah, 100%. I don't think it's appreciated as much by many people until you notice that you've not got a good goal kicker, you've not got a reliable goal kicker.
Superb stuff, mate. Superb. And then, lastly, before we go this week, there's a lot of rumours circulating over this NRL into Super League discussion. Big numbers being bandied about in terms of what that investment into Super League might look like financially. From a coach in the second tier's perspective, your thoughts on NRL investment into Super League and where that might lead the Championship?
I think it depends what it looks like. It's hard to comment fully without knowing what the bigger picture is, without knowing what the deal involves. You would hope that it involves the game as a whole, and we've had a discussion previous about this. Do we think that the model moving forward will be more like York are doing with Newcastle, where teams teams outside Super League will be affiliated with a Super League club unless you've got aspirations yourself to get into Super League eventually. If that's the case, and there might be a financial requirement from the RFL to say, well, you need to put X amount of money into a pot to prove that you've got the facilities and you've got the infrastructure to make sure that you can support a team that's going to challenge for Super League. It might be that you've got to become a full-time team for a couple of years before you get into Super League and show that you can sustain a full-time team. And if they are going to go do the Australian model as well, it's not the end of the world if somebody does become a feeder team. You know, Redcliffe Dolphins were a feeder team for a number of years, and now they're an NRL team in their own right. So it's not the end of the world. A team can be affiliated with a Super League team, but then if they get an investor comes in and they change their mind and they want to create their own model to push for Super League, then there's still that avenue to do that. But it's difficult for me to see the game growing any other way without investment from the NRL.
Yeah.
You know, if we can tie into their TV deal, not just in the UK but worldwide, you're looking at a global TV deal, and I think that's the selling point for the NRL with Super League. I think that helps their commercial and their TV deals as well worldwide if they can tie Super League into the NRL package as well. So I think there's something there for both parties. So I think it's really important for the game in the UK not to roll over and have our belly tickled by the NRL just because we're desperate for them. I think they potentially need us as much as we need them for their TV deal on a global model to grow the sport worldwide. And I think that's something that's really important. But I think what we need to do as a game, and Super League chairman need to do as well, is make sure that we're looking at the benefit of the game as a whole, not just what it means for their club individually. Because I think historically as a sport, we've maybe been a little bit too insular and voted for what we think is best for our club rather than the game.
And I'll just get your point on this. I mean, obviously, all the way back in 1996, you know, there's a massive amount of investment that came into rugby league, and a lot of that went into salary cap and player wages. I was talking to one of my mates yesterday in terms of if this money does materialise, I do think the on-field product of Super League is okay. I mean, you know, there'll be talk of do we extend the salary cap? You know, if it weren't for the injuries, I think the product would be even better. I think infrastructure-wise, the way it's ran, the governance of it, where that, as you said, where that money is put, I think that's where the detail has got to be. I think that on the field, for me, I'm comfortable with where we're currently at. I would hope that the vast majority of that money goes into fan experience, goes into promotion of the game in terms of getting more bums on seats, etc. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. But I also think as well, if you go back to when Super League came in '96 and all the clubs were issued with all this money or given this money over a long period of time, and let's not forget the money came in increments. So in year one, you got something like £1 million, then it went to 750, 500, 250, and 100, whatever it was, whatever the increments were. Yeah. And we have people in charge of clubs that, and I think this is an issue throughout rugby league, is that we have people that are in important positions within clubs in rugby league that are there just because they've been at a club a long time. You know, we've got to remember that we should be running a business now. So people should be employed by the clubs that are doing the job that they're qualified to do, their experience to do, not just because you've been at the club for 15 years or 20 years and you are now given that title and you're in charge of that. You might not have any clue about what to do, but you've got this title. And I think that's certainly what happened last time, where people were getting 3 and 4 year deals on exactly the same amount of money. And then it was great in year one when the club's got £1 million, but in year 4, when you got 250 grand or 100 grand or whatever it was, you're still paying out the same amount of money. And that's where clubs struggled. And we're having that foresight to know that, well, hang on a minute, we've got this amount of money in year 1 and this amount of money in year 5. We can't keep paying the same wage. We've got to do something with the money to make sure that we're growing our club, we're bringing more money in, we're growing the supporter base, we're growing the engagement within the community and the experience for the customers that are coming through the gate, to make sure that once that money drops, then we can try and get it up via other means. I don't think that's what happened last time. I think that's where a lot of clubs struggled, and I think that's a big thing. And I know you've got clubs now within Super League that are doing that, but I think certainly outside Super League, you've not got, I've mentioned before, where there'll be that many teams outside Super League now where their groundsman is just a fan or a director or somebody who volunteers at the club. And your pitch, we're looking at the state of some of the pitches now, and the weather's not great, but we need to be spending money to make sure the surfaces that we're playing on are sufficient and they're appropriate for rugby league in January, February, March, April. But like I say, a lot of people who do a great job, and it's their own time as well. They're just volunteers at the club, and they're not qualified groundspeople.
No. Well, and look, rugby league is without volunteers. Where would rugby league be? I mean, I know that you're not being disparaging there.
No, absolutely not. No.
We all know how important those people are. But I think when you actually, I think not a lot of people get to see behind the scenes of these rugby league sides, and I think many people would be very surprised at how few backroom staff, and I don't mean playing staff or like physios. Or I'm on about people in the offices, the marketing departments, people, those type of departments. In a lot of these clubs, they are very, very slim indeed, with many doing multiple function jobs. And again, if we're going to grow it, we need to look at that. We need to make sure that to grow a sport, you need expertise in certain areas, and also from a time and motion perspective, that they've got enough time to actually do the job they're paid to do without being pulled from pillar to post.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just going to use an example now, just because I'm qualified to give this because of my experience at the club. But I guess one of the best clubs in rugby league for that family experience and that volunteer experience is Batley. I've been there a number of years, and even now there's maybe 3, 4 or 5 blokes that are up there every single day. They're in the 70s, 80s, and even close to 90-year-old. And after the game, they go around, they pick all the litter up in the morning after, they clean all the sponsors' boxes, make sure everything's presentable, cleaning the seats, sweeping the terracing up. They're on the pitch doing the markings on the pitch and cutting the pitch and doing everything that you can think might be involved within a rugby league club. But these guys are volunteers, and they're 70, 80-year-old, and they do an absolutely fantastic job. And they do it. It's a community. They're getting out of the house. They're up at the club every single day. They're having that interaction. It's good for the mental health. It's good for the physical health. But we're talking about people who are volunteering for the club, and you take these guys out of that, and they're not there anymore, then you've got to pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Or you've got to get other volunteers to come in and do it. And that's what a lot of these clubs outside Super League are running on. They're running on volunteers, the goodwill of people coming up because it's their club. It's been their club for 50, 60, 70 years, and they want to see it succeed. But once these people go, where do you go from there? And if you've not got that plan, that future plan to make sure that you've got the facilities in place and the staff employees in place to make sure that all these things happen, then they don't get done.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right at Championship and lower levels, but also in Super League, there's a lot of volunteers around these clubs. And again, where would the game be without them? And I know that you join me in saluting every single one of them because, of course, they do it for the love and passion of the game and, of course, for their clubs, which is great. We'll keep a close eye on that. But again, there you go, another Championship Rugby League episode with myself and Craig, round number 7 of the Championship. Don't forget, if you're a Sheffield fan or you're in that area, it's a Saturday kickoff this week at Sheffield. All the other games are 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Sunday. Make sure you go out and watch some wonderful rugby league in your local communities. And of course, we will be back to unpack it all, same time, same place next week. Craig, as always, mate, thanks for your time. Go well at the weekend. We wish you well.
Thank you, mate. My pleasure.
All the best, mate. Ta-ra.